ladies and gentlemen, I am the almighty Zentaco, and today we're going to be learning how to make a simple AI for an enemy in GameMaker Studio 2. Now all this guy is going to do is wander left and right. When he touches a wall, he's going to turn around, but if he gets near a trigger, it's an invisible trigger, it'll tell him to jump. You can place these around the level so that the enemies will, when they get near these, jump up on platforms. Let's take a look at it and see what it's going to look like when we're done. Alright, as you see, he bounces around on the walls, he'll turn around, but if he gets near the trigger, he will jump. So if that looks like something you would like to learn, please stick with this tutorial and we'll get right down to it. Alright, so here we are with a mostly blank project. All I have are some sprites that I've already imported that we can use for the game. We have the block, we have a ground sprite, the enemy, and just a colored block for the jump trigger. Now keep in mind that we did set up a mask for this enemy, so you're going to want to do that. And also I centered the action point or the hotspot, whatever they call this thing. I actually don't know what they call it in GameMaker 2. Whatever, the point from which the sprite is drawn, we're going to center that. So just go here to the drop down, select middle center. Oh, it's the origin point right there. Okay. So now we need to make some objects. Let's do that right quick. Create object. First one's going to be obj block, and I'm just going to import the sprite for the block. And then I need obj ground, and I'm going to actually go ahead and give this to parent, and it's going to be the block. That way we can check collisions just with the block, and it'll also work with the ground. So that saves us some coding effort. We need the enemy, so obj enemy, grab his sprite. And then lastly, we're going to need the trigger. So we'll call it obj trigger. And we're going to get the sprite here. But we don't want to see this, so make sure you uncheck visible. Okay. Now we're going to need to add some code and some variables to our enemy. So double click on him. Click add event. We need to create event. This is the event that gets triggered as soon as this object is created, or rather this instance. So let's go ahead and add an X speed. We can give this an initial value of like 3. So he'll be moving at 3 at start. We'll give him a Y speed value, set that to 0. We'll give him a grab value. I'm going to set that to 0.1, but you can change that to whatever you want. That's going to be the value that we add to Y speed to create gravity. Okay, so add another event, and this is going to be the step event, and this is what runs every cycle of your game. First thing we're going to want to do is check for collisions and essentially give them the basic platform movement system. Now this is the system I use, and this is actually a pretty good one, and there's a bunch of tutorials on this already. I didn't make them, but if you're interested in how to make a basic platformer, you should probably watch a tutorial on that first, because I'm just going to quickly go over this. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is check for collisions on the x-axis. So if place meeting, that's how we find out if there is going to be an object that is colliding with the current object we were writing the script from. We're going to find out if there's a collision at x plus x speed, y, and we're going to check to see if we're colliding with the object block. If that happens, we're going to do this. We're going to say while place meeting, and that is with an exclamation mark, and what that means is that there is nothing there. That means not. So while there is not something over here, while we're not meeting with something, and that's gonna be x plus sine of x speed, y, and obj block again. Now and then we're gonna do this if that happens. So what this is gonna do, sine gives you the direction of a number, meaning that if we had, like, for example, if x speed was 32, sine would return 1. If x speed was negative 32, sine would return negative 1. So this is essentially saying, hey, while there's nothing 1 pixel in the direction that you're moving, then we're going to go ahead and move you closer to the object. So that essentially we're finding out if we're going to collide within one span of this built-in speed, then we're going to move the object all the way up to that and then deal with it. All right, so what we're going to do then is we're going to say x plus sine of x speed. So that's going to move, or sorry, x plus equals. That means plus equals means x equals x plus. So x plus equals sine of x speed. So now we're moving this object closer to the wall. And whenever we have collided with the wall and we're done, we're going to turn the object around. So we're going to say x speed times equals -1. We're just going to flip it around. Okay, so that is all we need to do for the x collision. Now we need to check the y collision. So let's give it a little bit of a comment there, just so we know what's going on. And it's going to be the exact same thing, except we're going to be using the y. So if place meeting x, y plus y speed, obj block. So if there's something there, then we need to move it closer. So while place meeting x, y plus sine of y speed. And then again, we're going to see if we're hitting the block. We're going to move it towards that. So y plus equals sine of y speed. And if this doesn't make sense to you, you need to watch a tutorial on a basic platforming engine in GameMaker, because I'm just going to try to speed through this. All right, so what do we do whenever we actually collide with the thing that we're approaching? We just want to set the y speed to 0, so we stop moving. Forgot to add the gravity, so let's go ahead and add grav up here at the very beginning. Say grav, and you're going to say y speed plus equals the value of grav. We're essentially adding grav to y speed, so y speed will be getting faster because gravity is affecting this object. Okay, now we want to find out, actually here, let's just get this thing to run real quick. We'll say move. We're going to update the position based on the speeds. So we're going to say x plus equals x speed and y plus equals y speed. So now our enemy should walk around. Let's take a look at him. Oh wait, I didn't put anything in the room. Okay, now we need to actually drop stuff in the room. So go to the room and we're going to start building our little level. I'm going to drag the ground in. I'm going to resize it because it's a little bit big. There we go. I got these blocks here. I'm going to go ahead and paint these in. Now you can paint in by holding Alt. So Alt will allow you to click, drag, and paint objects. So I'm going to paint these in here like so. It's actually super handy. Okay, and then we're going to drop our enemy dude in. All right, let's take a look at this and see if it works. Okay, so the bounce is working fine. Now you'll notice he's not facing the direction he's going, so we can do that really quick. Go back to the enemy, and we're going to do that right above move. We're going to say update direction, and we're going to say image x scale. That is the scale on the x. Now the thing about the x scale is you can make it a negative, and if you make it a -1, it essentially flips it the other direction. So that's what we want to do. If we're moving left, we want it to be -1. If we're moving right, we want this value to be +1. So we're going to say the image x scale equals sine of x speed. So if the x speed movement is to the right, he's going to be 1. If it's to the left, it's -1. Now you do need to keep something in mind. If you have resized your enemy at the start, this is going to cause a problem. Here, I'll show you real quick how it works, and we can actually fix that too. Okay, so he does flip, but let's go ahead back to the room and resize him. So let's say we resized him at start, and then we run it. Watch what happens. Now, as you see, he's kind of squished on the X. That's because the X is only, because of our code, it's only allowed to be 1 or -1, but we resized him up so that his X was actually at 1.5. So we can fix this by giving him a new value and setting it at start. I'll show you that right now. Go to create. Let's make a value and call it orig x scale. and we're going to set that to image X scale. So what this is doing is after we resize the object before the game runs. As soon as the game runs and this enemy is created, this instance, it's going to grab the rescale value and plug it into a ridge X scale. So what we want to do now is set image X scale to a ridge X scale times sine of X speed. So this will allow us to keep our resize and it won't rescale all funny. Here, watch. Okay, that's actually super handy. That's important to do if you have objects you're going to resize or scale or whatever throughout your game, and you are using image X scale to flip directions. You do want to make sure that you do this here. Very important. Okay, so now we want him to actually jump whenever he gets near the trigger. Let's drop the trigger in and set it right there. Okay, let's add another line here on 18, and we'll say jump near trigger. So we're going to use the place meeting. We'll say if place meeting, and that's X plus. Now you need to play around with this number based on how fast your object is moving, because if he's moving too quickly, he actually won't clear what he's trying to jump over. He'll end up jumping, hitting the wall in the air and turning around. So we want to make sure that he actually, gets pretty high. So you can either check further in front of him to do this, or you can actually give him a much faster jump. It's up to you, but we're going to do it this way. We're going to check to see if it's about 64 pixels away. So we'll say if X plus 64, but then we also want to check potentially behind or in front. So we will say sine of X speed. What that'll do is it'll either look, if we're going to the right, it'll look 64 in front. If we're going to the left, it'll look 64 behind. And then we're going to look on the current Y position, and we're looking for the object trigger. So if we have done that, that means that we are facing and moving towards this trigger, and it's 64 away. And all we want to do then is jump, which will set the Y speed to a negative value. So Y speed equals like -5. Not sure if that's enough, but we'll see. Let's give it a test. Yep, see, it wasn't quite enough far away, so he did jump into the wall and turn around. But you do see that this is going to work. So let's just make it higher, like 80. I actually don't think he's jumping high enough. Let's make it a -6. -6 was a bit high. We'll say we're going to check out 90 pixels away. There we go. I like that better. All right, so as you see, it does work. It probably would work better if he didn't move quite so fast. And then we can actually check less far ahead of him, back to like 64. But you can play around with these numbers all you want. I would actually recommend that you make the numbers as variables that you can modify. That was perfect, I like that. And that way you can kind of change them on the fly. You can do that by down here under variable definitions. You can add variables, and then they're really easy to edit. You don't have to go into your create event and screw around with them or change them in the code. Like I could do this. I could say, I don't know, let's name it dist to check. That's actually a really terrible name. Trigger dist. So that's the distance from the trigger, and I could just make that 64. Now over here on the +64, I then ask to see if we're trigger dist away. That will take care of it. That way it's more modular. You don't really want to ever hard code anything, so that you don't want to have to dig through your code and figure out like, oh, I need to change this 64 to 120. Just make it a variable, and you can change that variable on the fly. Much better. All right, guys. Well, I hope you found this video educational and useful. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below, and I will try to get back to you. I just want to say thank you for watching my videos. I do appreciate all my subscribers. I know I'm kind of not making as many videos as I used to. I have been using GameMaker for my own projects more than Fusion, so I will probably be making more GameMaker tutorials in the future. All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching this video, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I will see you in the next one.